Hey all, welcome to Eliza's Notes. I'm Liza Priyesh, second year English Literature student of K College Mananam. Today, I'm going to deal with the first chapter of Shapers of Destiny, Moulding and Being Moulded. As we all know, at first Britain was part of the northwestern Europe. Due to the geographical upheavals within the deepest parts of the earth, this bit of land got separated from the northwestern Europe and became a group of islands in the Atlantic Ocean. It is due to this reason that William Shakespeare in his play Richard II called Britain as precious stone set in the silver sea. The early inhabitants were the men of the Old and New Stone Age. At first, they used stone in its natural state for tools and weapons. Later, they cut and polished the stones. It made the weapons much more efficient for defending the wild animals. By around 3000 BC, they were able to cut down the vegetations. Some important features of them. They were short, black hair, dark skinned, dark eyed race with oval face and narrow skull. They were hunters who used polished weapons of bone and flint. They domesticated cattle and sheep. They made rough cloth for garments and made pottery and ornaments. After death, they buried the body in large tombs, which is under long barrows and mounds of earth lined with stones. Next, we are going to learn about the invaders of Britain. The first invaders are the Iberians. The Stone Ages have begun by 2000 BC. It was followed by Metal Ages, particularly the Bronze Age. During this period, a new race of people started to invade in Britain who were known as Iberians. They got the name Iberians because they came to Britain from Africa through the Iberian Peninsula. Some important features of Iberians. They are popularly called as dark Iberians as they are black haired and short statured. They were skilled in weaving and in crafts of many kinds. They first lived in hamlets. Stonehenge monument situated about 20 miles away from the Salisbury Plain is an example for the engineering skills of the Iberians. It is situated as a temple of sun worship, the earlier form of religion practiced. It is the noblest monument of the Neolithic age. They exploited the vast resources of copper and tin in Britain, which is revealed by the trade with Egypt. Reasons for the decline of Iberians. The arrival of Celts gradually pushed away the Iberians from their habitations towards less hospitable north and a marshy west. The second group of invaders were the Celts. The Iberians were driven away to the western and northern area by the Celtic tribes. It was during the 600 BC that the Celtic tribes invaded to Europe. After the invasion, they established in the parts which were habitable, whereas the Iberians were forced to migrate to remote regions of the land. The arrival of the Celts were divided into three groups. First, the Gaelic or Goidelic tribes. Second, the Britons. Third, the Belgae. The Gaelic or Goidelic tribes were the first group of Celtic invaders. They occupied the land for 3 centuries. The second wave of Celtic invaders were the Britons. They were people who migrated from the southwestern Europe. At first, they settled in the fertile lands of Kent. On contrary to the Gaels, Britons came in very large numbers in successive batches, and such a large area of the land came to be known as the Land of Britons. After a few years, the Britons came to be known as Britons and their land Britain. Next, we are discussing about the third and the last of the Celtic invaders who were the Belgae. It was during their period that the Romans arrived in 55 BC. Some important features of Celts. Unlike the Iberians, the Celts were tall, light haired warriors who are skillful in the use of iron, which had replaced bronze. They were tribesmen and clansmen. The Celts were more attracted to the nomadic way of life than agriculture. Their families and clans were kept moving from one place to another for finding a good pasture for their animals and better hunting grounds for themselves. They were skilled craftsmen in gold and metal. The south and the southwestern areas were the most advanced regions of the Celtic civilizations. Communication became very easy after the development of ports and ships. Being attracted by the rich metals like tin, traders from the Mediterranean visited the land. Religious views of Celts. Celts firmly believed that there is divinity in all objects. Their worship was based on all natural objects. These became the elves, fairies, pixies, etc., who had become the central characters in children's fairy tales. The English practices like the Maypole and Mayqueen, the Halloween tricks and treats, can be traced back these beliefs. There were priests called Druids who were held in great respect. They were also poets. Belgae maintained trade relations with the Gauls, the people of France. It was one of the significant reasons for Julius Caesar to attack Britain, as he wanted to conquer not only the Celts in Gaul but also their relations across the Channel. The third group of invaders were the Romans. While the well marked areas of Britain were captured by the Celts, the rest of the Europe witnessed the rise of a new empire, the Romans. They arrived in the Britain in 55 BC with a small force under the leadership of Julius Caesar. He was considered as one of the glorious stars of the Roman firmament. Julius Caesar, who was famous for being courageous, adventurous, and ambitious, realized that the Celts could not be easily defeated. Within a year, he came with a larger force and won the first battle. After the victory in the first battle with Celts, Julius Caesar was forced to leave Britain, and back home he was assassinated by his opponents. The mad emperor Caligula gave orders for the conquest of Britain by the request of Caractacus, the son of King Cunoblin of Colchester. 3 years later, in 43 AD, Emperor Claudius issued new orders, and the Roman soldiers landed on the unprotected southern shores of Britain and easily established their supremacy at first in Kent and Colchester, and by 50 AD all over the southern Britain. There is no hardship for the Britons to accept the Roman Empire, as the Cunoblin of Colchester had cultivated the friendship of emperors like Tiberius and Augustus. But the northern and the western regions were not like the former regions. The Roman soldiers had to face resistance from them. The Celtic tribes fought hard to preserve their sovereignty from the Romans, but they tried hardly for conquering the northwards by destroying every barrier. Finally, by 60 AD, they found victory in this and sacked the low-lying island of Anglesey and mercilessly destroyed the Druid priest. Now, we are going to discuss about the revolts faced by the Romans. After the attack against the Druid priest, soon the Iceni tribes forced the Roman soldiers to return to Norfolk by raising a revolt. This revolt was led by the Iceni queen Boudica. The revolt was organized as a revenge against the soldiers who brutally raped Boudica's daughters. But the revenge was a failure, and the queen was forced to commit suicide with her two daughters. After 30 years of effort, the Romans were somehow managed to overpower the wild Welsh. But it was very hard for them to conquer the Picts and the Scots. As a result, for protecting the Roman territory, a big wall known as Hardin's Wall was built during the reign of Emperor Hardin. It was in 123 AD. Also, another fort was built at the order of the Roman governor Agricola. It was built between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and the name of the wall is Anduin's Wall. Now, we are going to discuss about the legacies of the Romans. The Romans had brought peace to the land. The southern and the eastern Celtic tribes accepted the Romans as their masters. Another legacy was the roads built by them. The cities were linked with these roads, which improved the transportation facilities. The Roman Empire was very liberal in some aspects, allowed the privilege of self governance to cities and towns. Some of the self governing cities are the St. Alban, Colchester, Lincoln, Gloucester, and the York. It was during the time period of the Romans that Christianity came into the Britain. It was brought by the soldiers who had witnessed the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The Roman historian Tertullian speaks about the British Christians who lived in the 2nd century. It acts as a proof for the deep rooted Christianity in Britain. Literature has been greatly influenced by the Christianity. It can be seen in the legends of saints like the legend of Saint Alban and the story of Helena and her invention of true cross. Christianity was declared as the official religion of Rome by Constantine, who was Helena's son. Also, he declared that his empire would be the Holy Roman Empire. Our next topic of discussion is what are the reasons for the Roman army to withdraw from Britain. The Romans ruled Britain for 4 centuries. Main cause of its decline was the weakness of central authority. That is, the rulers of Rome were autocratic, but not all of them were efficient rulers. Second cause for the decline is that the Romans were very intolerant. Due to leading a luxurious life, their discipline and morality given way to lust and lawlessness. Finally, the Romans fell prey to the Goths, who captured the city of Rome in 410 AD under the leadership of Alaric. As a result, Emperor Honorius was forced to withdraw the Roman soldiers from the empire, and soon the Roman soldiers in Britain left the land. The Picts and Scots broke through the Huns' wall and destroyed the land and the people. The Britons, who lacked military training or strategy, took up arms for their motherland under the leadership of a Welsh bishop, Saint Germanus. As a result, they won the Hallelujah victory in 429 AD. But the Britons were not strong enough to fight back against the Picts and Scots. So, the then British chief Vortigern decided to have the help of the Jute warriors Hengist and Horsa to beat back the Picts and Scots. But this alliance with Jutes drastically changed the history of Romance. The next group of invaders were the Anglo-Saxons. The conquest of Britain by the Anglo-Saxons happened during the second half of the 5th century. After the withdrawal of the Roman army, civilization came into momentary halt. There were some written records for this conquest period. The ecclesiastical history of the English nation, written in 723 AD by Venerable Bede, and the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle were the trustworthy sources of the events happened in this period. With the help of the Jute warriors, Hengist and Horsa, the then British King Vortigern fought against the Picts and Scots, who threatened his kingdom. On contrary, the Jute warriors, who were interested in the mild climate and the fertile land of Britain, planned to settle down in the new land. As a result, they fought against Vortigern, which he doesn't expected, and killed him in 445 AD. Hengist became the undisputed king of Britain after killing Horsa. After this, the Jute families arrived and made the kingdom their own. This was the settlement story of the Germanic tribes. Next is the Saxons, who came around in 477 AD. They arrived in 3 ships, which is led by Ela. At first, they faced resistance from the early settlers, but Saxons, who were very strong, fierce warriors, captured the region. The Saxons mainly settled down in the southern country of Sussex, the East Saxons in the Essex, Middle Saxons in Middlesex and Surrey, and finally the West Saxons in the Wessex, which consists of Berkshire, Wiltshire, Hampshire, and Dorset. Another important tribe to invade the land was the Angles. The Angles were came from South Denmark, North Germany, and Holland under the leadership of a brawny man named as Ida. They were settled in Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia. After their invasion, the land they occupied came to be known as Angleland or the land of Angles, which later became England and finally into England. Next, we are going through the important features of the Germanic tribe. There were no records about the resistance put up by the Briton against the invaders. Venerable Bede, in his historical records, mentioned the name of Ambrosius Aurelius, but his life story is steeped in the legends and myths. King Arthur and his knights were also a part of the records of the historians. He was named as the defender of Britain by Gildas. After some time, Britons were forced to surrender to the Saxons. Those who could not accept them as masters fled to north and west, while others settled in France north of the river Loire in a place called Armorica. Later, this name was replaced by the name Brittany, which means the land of self exiled Britons. Some of the Britons who were not supposed to exile from Britain started to settle down in the west of Wales like the Celts. Cymry was the term used by them to call themselves, which means comrades, and the region came to be known as Cambria. The Cymries were united by Christianity, by which they survived the Saxon attacks. They had faced troubles and hardships, but they guarded their heritage of poetry and religion. On contrary, the Celts were nature worshippers. They considered nature as their mother, sustainer, reformer, and protector. The civilized tones of the Latin language were replaced by the harsh Germanic accent of Saxons. In return, these people left only a few names of rivers such as River Usk, Axe, and Ex, which contains the Breton word Iska, means water. The Anglo-Saxons were not interested to lead a luxurious life. They were not interested in the marble baths of the Roman Britons. They destroyed these places and nature took over. Most of the Christian churches were destroyed and they continued to worship the gods such as Thor, Woden, and Frigg. Also, the Anglo Saxons were not bloodthirsty. They considered the island as their own. They were clannish and loyal to their leader. Once they settled down in the land, they submitted themselves to the rules of their leader, which is considered as the beginning of the English laws. With this, I am concluding my session. Thank you for watching.